After turning off the lights, please don't make noise in the dorm. I gently set the wash basin down on the table, careful not to let it clatter. Before going to bed, remember to lock the windows and doors. There won't be anyone or anything watching you from outside the window. If there is, please stay quiet and don't disturb it. If you hear a cry for help after lights out, don't try to assist the poor rule breaker. If you do, you might end up facing punishment too. That last line left me completely baffled. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Suddenly, a faint static buzz interfered with the speaker system, cutting off the mechanical hum of the announcement. All that lingered was a long, eerie zzz. Zzz. Zzz, echoing through the room. The dorm fell silent for a few seconds. Then Jessica Miller let out a sharp laugh. "What's wrong with you guys? Don't tell me you're actually buying this crap. Sounds like some prank from the telecom nerds over in the engineering building." Her voice boomed out of nowhere, startling me so badly I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Geez, Emily, you're such a scaredy cat." Ha ha. I stood there, frozen, not daring to respond. Who would have thought that after summer break, the first night back at college would kick off with such a creepy campus-wide announcement? I glanced up at Sarah Nguyen, who was lying on her bed. She didn't say a word, just pulled the blanket over her head. Probably asleep already, I figured. Jessica grabbed her toiletries from the desk and sauntered over to the dorm room door, casually pushing it open. The door was old metal, rusted at the hinges, and it screeched every time it moved. Normally, even after lights out, the hallway would have a few dim lights on so students could still see if they got up in the middle of the night. But not tonight. Outside, it was dead quiet, no footsteps, no voices. It felt like the entire sprawling dorm building was empty except for us. "Jess, maybe skip washing up tonight?" "I think the power's out in the hall," I said softly, a weird, uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. "Oh, come on, this prank's getting way too real." Jessica smirked. She had one foot out the door but hesitated, pulling it back in. A flash of lightning lit up the room for a split second through the window, but the hallway beyond the door stayed pitch black. "Jess, can you close the door?" "I'm getting cold," Sarah's voice piped up unexpectedly from under her blanket. "Sarah, you're still awake?" "I thought you were out cold already," Jessica replied. "Yeah. I'm kinda freaked out," Sarah mumbled. I sighed. Sarah's always been the biggest scaredy cat out of the four of us. Whenever Jessica drags us into watching horror movies, Sarah's the one hiding behind a pillow or burying herself in blankets. The four of us, me, Sarah, Jessica, we were all here in the room. But what about Chloe Reed? Chloe went to wash up and still hasn't. Before I could finish, bang, Jessica slammed the door shut. "Whoops, my bad. I didn't even notice. But it's no big deal, it's just a school, right?" Jessica Miller scratched her head, looking a little flustered. I opened my mouth to say something, but my eyes accidentally drifted behind Sarah Nguyen. Her bed was right next to the window. The window was still shut tight, but just a moment ago, maybe it was my imagination, I could have sworn I saw something in the bottom right corner. A dark shape. Like, half a head peeking into the room from outside, watching us. There won't be anyone or anything watching you from outside the window. If there is, please stay quiet and don't disturb it. Those words from the dorm announcement replayed in my mind, and a chill shot down my spine. No way. It had to be my eyes playing tricks on me. We're on the 8th floor, for crying out loud. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and marched over to the window. With a quick tug, I yanked the curtains shut. And just like that, the last bit of light in the room vanished, plunging us into total darkness. Emily, why'd you pull the curtains all of a sudden? I can't see a damn thing now. Jessica complained. What the hell? Why won't this turn on? She spun around and fumbled for the desk lamp plugged into the charger, but it wouldn't respond. Don't bother. It's pointless, I said. If the power outage was just a random fluke, it wouldn't explain why every single light source in our dorm room was dead. Too convenient. Too coincidental. And honestly, this didn't feel like something a person could pull off. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed faintly, but the top left corner showed no signal. It was already 11 p.m., and Chloe Reed still hadn't come back. Everything about this felt off. Jess, Sarah, do your phones have signal? They both grabbed their phones, checked, and froze for a second before shaking their heads. Jessica, who's never bought into ghost stories, yanked her laptop off her bed and jabbed the power button repeatedly in frustration. Laptop won't start, phones have no signal, what the hell is going on here? I shook my head. I don't know. But one thing was crystal clear, this wasn't a prank. Our dorm, it's not, like, haunted, is it? Jessica choked on that last word, swallowing it back. Sarah, still on her bed, started trembling even harder, a faint whimper escaping her lips. What do we do? Chloe's still out there. Shh, quiet, someone's coming, I hissed. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, fast, frantic ones. They stopped right outside our door. Help! Something's chasing me. Please. Help! Whoever it was pounded on the door with desperate force. It was a girl's voice, maybe Hannah Yang from the room next door. She's not in our major, and we barely ever talk to her. What do we do? Should we let her in? Sarah asked, her timid voice trembling. She'd climbed off her bed by now, no surprise, really. In a situation like this, sticking close to others feels safer. Jessica, always the bold one, shouted through the door, "Hey, what's up there chasing you?" No answer. Just louder, more frantic banging. Help me. Please, please. I'm so scared. I don't know what it was, that head, it was wearing some kind of hat. A hat? What kind of hat? Like a long, shadowy figure in a cap? A shiver ran through all three of us at the same time. Every horror movie I'd ever watched over the years started flashing through my mind. Open the door quick. Please, I'm begging you, it's almost here. Jessica hesitated, inching toward the door cautiously, grabbing the desk lamp from the table as a makeshift weapon. I grabbed her wrist, frowning in disapproval. If you hear a cry for help after lights out, don't try to assist the poor rule breaker. If you do, you might end up facing punishment too. A rule breaker? Was the girl outside some kind of violator, now facing whatever penalty this was? My stomach sank. No. Don't open it. I didn't know what rule breaker meant in this context, maybe she was innocent. But we couldn't take the risk. A blood-curdling scream ripped through the air outside, so raw and desperate it sounded like she was being torn apart. The shrieking lasted a few agonizing seconds, and it made my scalp crawl. Sarah dropped to the floor, terrified, clapping a hand over her mouth to muffle her sobs. I want to go home. What the hell is happening? I was just as scared. No matter how tough you are, it's impossible to stay calm in a situation this unhinged and unknown. The noise outside finally stopped, But the silence didn't last a minute before the door started banging again, thud, thud, thud. This time, none of us even suggested opening it. That girl had clearly met some awful fate, so who was knocking now? The pounding kept going, each hit rattling our nerves like a hammer. Jessica snapped, fed up. "Stop it already! Damn it, quit acting all spooky to freak us out." The knocking stopped dead. "Jess, what are you saying?" "It's me, Chloe." "Open the door already." "Chloe's back?" "I'll let her in." "Emily, what do you think? Can we open it?" Chloe's voice came through again, tinged with annoyance. "What are you three whispering about? I just finished showering, and you locked me out. Are you messing with me or what? Cut it out. If you keep this up, I'm gonna get pissed." Chloe's never been the bravest, and being stuck out there in the dark with flickering hall lights must have rattled her bad. She's been our roommate for 3 years, we couldn't just leave her out there if something happened. Plus, the rules didn't say anything about not letting a roommate in. Still, I wasn't sure. I raised my voice toward the door. "Chloe, is anyone else out there with you? Like, someone in a hat or something? What are you talking about in the middle of the night? That's creepy." "It's just me." "Open it," I said, nodding. Jessica gripped the lamp tighter, edged toward the door, and cracked it open just enough. Chloe stormed in with her wash basin, locking the door behind her and grumbling. I was washing my face when the power cut out, didn't even get the soap off. Everything seemed normal. Looked like letting Chloe in was the right call. But just as I started to relax, Chloe said something that froze the air in the room. "Oh, by the way, who spilled soda on the door? It's all sticky and gross. Clean it up tomorrow, okay?" We hadn't been drinking anything. No one had touched the door. "So what was that sticky stuff?" Sarah let out a choked ah, clamping her hand over her mouth like she was about to puke, probably picturing some nasty liquid. Jessica and I exchanged grim looks, both of us flashing back to the blood-soaked scenes from Saw. "Lift your foot up for a sec," Jessica said to Chloe. Chloe frowned, confused. "What? You guys are acting so weird tonight." She muttered but complied, raising her foot. Jessica and I leaned in, squinting by the faint moonlight. It was too dark to tell. "Didn't you hear the announcement while you were in the bathroom?" I asked. Chloe looked puzzled. "What announcement?" "There wasn't one." That was bizarre. Did the broadcast only play in our room? I recounted the rules from the announcement and told her about the girl at the door earlier. "It's late, don't start spinning ghost stories for the whole dorm." "You're freaking me out," Chloe said. Jessica shot her an impatient glare. "You see Sarah crying over there? No one's making this up for kicks. So, what do we do? Just sit here waiting to die? What else can we do? You want to go out there?" Chloe shrank back, terrified, and mumbled, "This is so," before trailing off. The three of us didn't know what was happening outside, but Chloe had just come from out there. "Chloe, you really didn't see anything before you got back?" She paused, thinking hard. "No, it was just me in the hall. No one else." That didn't add up. The girl from next door had screamed about someone in a hat chasing her. Why hadn't Chloe seen anything? And if that girl really got attacked right outside our door, there'd be a body. But there was nothing out there. "Emily, I'm scared of the dark." can I sleep in your bed? Tonight? Sarah asked, her voice hoarse from crying, looking pitiful. Yeah, come up here. Sarah's petite, so even though the dorm beds are singles, we could squeeze in together. We all climbed into our beds, but no one could sleep. It's supposed to be hot and muggy this time of year, but tonight felt unnaturally cold, with occasional chills running up my spine. Was that wind? I shuddered, every hair on my body standing on end. The windows were closed, where was the breeze coming from? I turned towards Sarah's bed by the window. The curtains were fluttering, like wind was blowing in from there. They lifted, and behind them, it almost looked like a figure was lurking. Who opened the window? Whoops, my bad. I didn't even notice. But it's no big deal, it's just a school, right? Jessica Miller scratched her head, looking a bit flustered. I was about to say something when my eyes drifted behind Sarah Nguyen. Her bed was right next to the window. It was still shut tight, but just a moment ago, I wasn't sure if it was my imagination. I thought I saw something in the bottom right corner. A dark shape. Like someone outside, poking half their head into the room, peeking in. There won't be anyone or anything watching you from outside the window. If there is, please stay quiet and don't disturb it. The words from the dorm announcement echoed in my head, sending a shiver down my spine. It had to be my eyes playing tricks. We're on the 8th floor, after all. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and strode over to the window, yanking the curtains closed. With that, the last sliver of light in the room disappeared, plunging us into darkness. Emily, why'd you pull the curtains out of nowhere? I can't see anything. Jessica grumbled. What the hell? Why won't this turn on? She spun around to flip on the desk lamp plugged into the charger, but it stayed dead. Don't bother. It's useless, I said. If the power outage was just a fluke, it wouldn't explain why every light in the dorm was out. Too coincidental. And honestly, this didn't feel human-made. I pulled out my phone. The screen glowed faintly, but the top left corner read no signal. It was 11 p.m., and Chloe Reed still hadn't come back. Everything felt wrong. Jess, Sarah, do your phones have signal? They both checked theirs, froze for a second, and shook their heads. Jessica, who's never believed in ghost stories, grabbed her laptop from her bed and jabbed the power button repeatedly in frustration. Laptop's dead, phones have no signal, what's going on here? I shook my head. I don't know. But one thing was certain, this wasn't a prank. Our dorm, it's not, like, cursed, is it? Jessica swallowed the last word hard. Sarah, sitting on her bed, started trembling harder, tears mixing with her shaky voice. What do we do? Chloe's still out there. Shh, quiet, someone's coming, I whispered. Rapid footsteps echoed from the hall, stopping right outside our door. Help! Something's chasing me. Save me! Whoever it was pounded on the door with desperate force. It was a girl's voice, maybe Hannah Young from next door. She's not in our major, and we hardly ever talk. What do we do? Should we let her in? Sarah asked, her timid voice wavering as she climbed off her bed. In a situation like this, sticking close to others felt safer. Jessica boldly shouted through the door, "Hey, what's chasing you out there?" No answer, just louder, more frantic banging. Save me. Please, please. I'm so scared. I don't know what it was, that head, it was wearing some kind of hat. A hat? What kind? like a long, shadowy figure in a cap? We all shuddered at the same time. Every horror movie I'd ever seen started flashing through my mind. Before going to bed, remember to lock the windows. Sarah's bed was the only one by the window, but she was lying next to me now. So who opened it? Feeling Sarah trembling beside me, I patted her shoulder gently twice. Let's just leave it open, I said. No one dared go close it. We were all too afraid of what might happen if we did. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the window wasn't latched tight, and the wind just blew it open. The dorm was dead quiet, save for Sarah's shaky breathing next to me. I knew she wasn't asleep, no one could sleep through this. With my eyes closed, I lost track of time. I don't know how long it had been when the silence in the dorm was shattered. I strained to pinpoint the sound, its distance, its source. It was coming from the window over there. And it was getting closer, like something was crawling. Slow, but rhythmic. The sound stopped, as if whatever it was had reached its destination. Even with my eyes shut, I could feel the room grow darker. That meant the only light source, the window, was being blocked by something. There won't be anyone or anything watching you from outside the window. If there is, please stay quiet and don't disturb it. I didn't dare open my eyes, terrified that the second I did, I'd come face to face with it. Sarah shook harder beside me. Under the blanket, I gripped her wrist tight. The dorm sank into an eerie silence, but we all knew deep down it was still there, at the window. In that suffocating quiet, the unease only grew worse. If it wasn't doing anything else, then what did it want? Just as my unease was about to hit its breaking point, something finally stirred outside the window. Downstairs, an alarm clock went off in one of the lower dorms, some faint music drifting up through the open window. It moved. That slow crawling sound again. It seemed to be heading downward. Swallowing my fear, I cracked my eyes open just enough to peek at the window. Behind the curtains was half a humanoid figure. No, that wasn't right. The head looked human, but on either side were two long, thin arms, unnaturally small and spindly. This was only half of it. If I saw the whole thing. It hit me. It might be some twisted mix of human and spider, a human head with spider-like limbs. I quickly covered Sarah's eyes, terrified she'd scream if she saw it. No wonder it could climb walls. It had been right there at the window while my eyes were closed. If I'd looked, I wouldn't have been able to stop myself from screaming. It crawled away. Moments later, piercing screams and wails of agony erupted from outside. Help! There's a monster, save us! Jenny, get back inside! Ah! The desperate cries sent a cold sweat prickling over my skin, my heart pounding out of control. The sound wasn't far, probably the floor right below us. Was it a coincidence? Or had we really dodged a bullet by staying silent and not disturbing the thing at the window? Those rules from the announcement, did we have to follow every single one to survive? One thing was clear now, it wasn't just our dorm caught up in this nightmare. The whole building, maybe even the entire campus, was shrouded in this eerie, oppressive gloom. My nerves were stretched tight, and I didn't dare let my guard down for a second. The screams and sobbing from downstairs gradually faded, and Sarah beside me finally calmed down a little. Maybe if we could just make it through the night, everything would go back to normal. I had a bizarre dream, a man in a hat, and a spider-like monster with a human face. When I woke up again, the sky outside was just starting to lighten. Instinctively, I glanced at the window. It was closed now, I didn't know who'd shut it. Had all of this just been a dream? Sarah stirred beside me. Then the intercom crackled to life. Dear students, welcome back to our familiar campus. Below are the latest school rules and regulations. Please listen carefully. All students must comply with the following guidelines. Any violations will have consequences you'll bear yourselves. This time, after repeating last night's rules, the announcement added new ones right after. I grabbed my phone and turned on the auto-transcribe recording feature. During the day, you may leave the dorm and move freely, but you must return before dark. Avoid people wearing black masks. If you encounter them, try to ignore them. Take class bells seriously, don't be late, don't leave early. It's easy to get lost on campus. If you can't find your classroom, cover your eyes and walk 10 meters straight ahead. The experimental teaching building has no 7th floor. Don't anger the teachers. If a teacher gets mad, the consequences will be severe. Lastly, there's no braised pork in the cafeteria. ZZZ, ZZZ, ZZZ. The signal cut out with static again. The voice on the intercom sounded like it was struggling, but no more words came through. I sat up in bed. The others started stirring too. Chloe had dark circles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept a wink. No matter what, daylight always felt safer than the night. Taking a chance, I walked over to the window. I pulled back the curtains and cracked it open a bit. Nothing. There's nothing out there. Whatever it was, it's gone, I said. Everyone let out a collective sigh of relief. Jessica bit her pale lips. Emily, you saw that thing too, right? I nodded. What the hell was it? Sarah, still shaky and probably low on sugar, pulled a candy from somewhere and popped it in her mouth. She asked us cautiously, "What do you think it was?" Hard to say. It didn't look human, I replied. Everyone's faces darkened. It's 6:30 already. Should we head out? Yeah, let's go. Didn't it say we can move around freely during the day as long as we're back before dark? Jessica opened the dorm door. In the hallway, a few people were carrying wash basins and toothbrushes, heading to the bathroom. Others were coming back with breakfast bags from outside. If it weren't for that bizarre announcement, it'd feel like nothing had happened. I glanced down at the floor by the door. No blood, no gore, nothing like we'd imagined. I turned to Chloe. Chloe, let me see the bottom of your slippers. She looked confused but lifted her foot. Last night, her black soles had been impossible to see in the dark. But now, in the morning light, it was clear. Her slippers were stained with something dried now, but still visibly smeared with patches of black and red covering the whole sole. That girl who'd been punished for banging on our door last night had definitely been hurt. Maybe even dead. And someone or something had cleaned up the blood. The door to the next dorm room creaked open. A girl peeked her head out, then turned back inside. It's fine, come on out. A few others followed her. They glanced around nervously, dark circles shadowing their eyes. Then, from the back of their room, another girl stepped out. Her hair was a tangled mess, her skin ghostly pale. She moved unnaturally, like she was stepping on cotton, her balance floating and off-kilter. And on her face a black mask. I froze, my blood running cold, scalp tingling with dread. There were 4 girls in that room, no more, no less. But that one at the end, she was definitely the girl who'd begged for help at our door last night. Jessica saw her too and nearly yelped in fear. I clapped a hand over her mouth, yanked her back into our dorm. and shot a look at the others, Sarah and Chloe, silently begging them to stay quiet and not step outside. I pretended I hadn't seen her. The girls from next door shuffled past our room, seemingly headed out together. Didn't any of them notice their roommate wearing that black mask, acting so off? Their footsteps faded down the hall. Guessing they were about to head downstairs, I cautiously stuck my phone out the door, snapping a quick picture of the hallway. I didn't dare poke my head out, this was the safest way to check what was going on. The photo came out blurry and out of focus. What's that? Sarah pointed at a dark shape in the image. I pinched my fingers to zoom in, nearly dropping the phone. It was the girl in the black mask. Her head was twisted 90 degrees like an owl's, staring straight toward our room. I couldn't see her expression, her face was hidden behind the mask. But those eyes, they gave me the creeping feeling of being watched, their focus unnervingly unnatural. If I'd stuck my head out, I'd have locked eyes with her. Is that her from last night? Sarah's eyes widened, panic creeping into her voice. Is she still alive? Or, alive my ass, have you ever seen a living person bend their neck like that? Jessica's voice was hoarse with disbelief. Stop thinking about it. Just pretend you didn't see her. The announcement said it, right? If you run into someone in a black mask, act like they're not there, I said. Let's go. We've got class. It was Monday, and our first class was Advanced Calculus in room 512. The campus paths were packed with people walking, but most wore uneasy expressions, their steps hurried and impatient, way more than usual. We passed a few people in black masks along the way. We ignored them, avoiding their eyes. By 7:45, we were rushing toward the lecture building. Crap, why's it so crowded? Jessica blurted, stunned. Dozens of students were lined up at the elevators, a typical Monday morning bottleneck before the first class. Take class bells seriously, don't be late, don't leave early. If we waited for the elevator, there was no way we'd make it to class before the 8 o'clock bell. No time to wait, let's take the stairs. A bunch of latecomers realized the same thing and bolted for the stairwell too. We got tangled up in the crowd, jostled by the rush. First floor, 747. Second floor, 748. Third floor, 750. Fourth floor, 752. Fifth floor, 754. 6 minutes left, we'd make it. The four of us let out a collective sigh of relief. The fifth floor hallway was dim, with most classrooms locked shut. 2 other groups had climbed up with us, and every student seemed to find their rooms. 506, 508, 510. 514. Our school's classrooms were numbered on both sides, odds on one, evens on the other. Logically, room 512 should be between 510 and 514. But it was like it had vanished. 756, we still hadn't found it. Jessica was getting antsy. Chloe, double-check the schedule. Did you miss something? Quit yapping. Look for yourself, there's number 512 anywhere. What do we do? Class is about to start. We were pacing like ants on a hot skillet. Did we go to the wrong building? Check the schedule again, did we mess up? Something was off. This wasn't our mistake. No matter the building, a classroom couldn't just disappear like that. It's easy to get lost on campus. If you can't find your classroom, cover your eyes and walk 10 meters straight ahead. I shut my eyes, and the noise around me vanished instantly. But a sharp, prickling feeling of being watched crept up my spine. When I opened my eyes, the chatter of the other three snapped back into focus. Stop talking. We're going to hold hands, close our eyes, and walk forward 10 steps together, I said. 7:58, 2 minutes left. If we kept scrambling, we'd definitely be late. They remembered that weird rule too. We lined up where we stood, linking hands. I closed my eyes again. The world dropped into endless darkness and silence. I was second from the right, Sarah's hand in my left, Chloe's in my right. Chloe was trembling. Emily, you there? I gave a soft mm. Her shaking got worse. There's someone on my right. A chill ran through all of us. Chloe was on the far right, there shouldn't be anyone there. Don't move. Don't let go, just keep walking forward. Follow my count. One step was about 2 feet, so 20 steps would cover just over 10 meters. 1, 2, 3. 19, 20. By the time I finished counting, my back was slick with cold sweat. Open your eyes. We all did. No fifth person in sight. And right in front of us was room 512. We stepped inside. The back was nearly full, with only the first 2 rows still open. The 4 of us scrambled to grab seats. 7:59. The class bell rang. As the bell rang, a female professor, about 40 years old, stepped through the door. She was dressed simply, almost too plainly. Just seconds ago, the hallway had been empty except for the 4 of us. It was like she'd appeared out of nowhere. All right, class, it's time to start. I'll take attendance first, she said, flashing a friendly smile. But something felt off. Her mouth curved upward, but her eyes stayed fixed, staring at us with an unnerving stillness. Sophie Young. Here. Mark Wu. Here. Sarah Nguyen. Sarah, sitting next to me, froze under the professor's creepy expression, too scared to speak. Has Sarah Nguyen arrived? If not. The professor's smile widened, like catching a student absent was the highlight of her day. I quickly raised my hand to cut her off. Professor. Sarah's here, she's the girl to my left. She caught a cold last night and can't talk because of a sore throat. Oh, I see. That's a shame, the professor replied, her eyebrows dipping slightly. We all knew she wasn't disappointed about Sarah's cold. Once all 4 of us from the dorm had been called, we finally breathed a little easier. Tammy Jiang. Silence. Has Tammy Jiang arrived? The professor asked again, patient as ever. Still no answer. We knew her, she was in our major, a senior. Tammy never missed class. But weirdly, I remembered seeing her earlier, lined up at the elevator with her roommates, chatting. She'd been close to the front, she couldn't have been late. Had they run into the same problem? Couldn't find the room? The professor marked something on her list. Then she called her 3 roommates' names. No responses there either. After running through the whole roster, the professor seemed satisfied, snapped her attendance book shut, and started the lecture. Her voice was slow, robotic, like an AI reading a script. No highs, no lows, just a flat drone. For us, who'd barely slept all night, it was practically hypnotic. But sitting in the front 2 rows, way too close to her piercing stare, I couldn't let myself doze off. No matter how tired I was, I pinched my arm hard to stay awake. About 40 minutes in, a knock interrupted the class. Tammy Jiang and her 3 roommates stumbled in, pale and panting like they'd just sprinted there. The professor's chalk stopped mid-stroke. She turned to face them. "Why are you late?" "Good students don't show up tardy," she said, her tone eerily calm. One of Tammy's roommates jumped in. "Sorry, Professor, it wasn't on purpose. Being late means punishment. That's the school's rule." "What's the punishment?" The second a girl named Lily asked. Her eyes went blank, like she'd lost her sight. She started walking forward, dazed. Her steps were slow, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a flicker of resistance on her face, though maybe I imagined it. "Lily, what's wrong? Why are you walking?" Tammy reached out, but Lily staggered ahead like she was drunk, swaying unsteadily. Lily staggered to the window, opened it, and without a second's hesitation, jumped. A heavy thud echoed up, the sound of something crashing to the ground. That was the punishment for being late. The room went deathly pale. A few students near the window must have seen what was below. They covered their mouths, gagging. "No, please, I don't want to die. Don't punish me." Tammy John crumpled to the floor, her face a mix of terror and helplessness. "It's not our fault. The elevator broke down and took us to the 7th floor, that's why we're late," another girl, Mia, blurted out in defense. The professor's head didn't move, but her eyes shifted unnaturally, creepily locking onto Mia. "So you're saying the elevator went to the 7th floor, and that's why you were delayed?" My heart stopped. The experimental teaching building has no 7th floor. I believed Mia was telling the truth. That had to be why their whole group was late. The professor let out two sharp, chilling laughs. The chalk in her hand snapped, crumbling to dust. "Liar! There is no 7th floor in this building. Students who lie have to swallow 1,000 needles. Don't anger the teachers. If a teacher gets mad, the consequences will be severe." The professor looked very angry. Mia's face twisted in agony. Her eyes bulged like a dead fish, her throat gasping desperately. Her stomach swelled, bigger and bigger, as if what she was choking down wasn't air but something else. She writhed on the floor for a few agonizing moments, her chances of survival gone. Sharp needles pierced through her throat. Seeing it made my scalp crawl. Ring, ring, ring. The bell signaling the end of class sounded. The professor's expression flipped like a switch, reverting to her earlier calm as if nothing had happened. She tapped the podium twice. "All right, class is over. The last one out, please lock the door." With that, she grabbed her lesson plans and attendance sheet and left. I was confused. The bell had rung, so Tammy and her other surviving roommates seemed to be off the hook. But the professor didn't strike me as someone who'd let things slide that easily. Did she have to follow the class schedule rules too? Tammy stared at Mia's cold body on the floor, breaking into sobs. The other surviving girl hugged her shoulders, trying to comfort her. Chloe tapped my shoulder. "Let's go, next class is starting." The other students, having just witnessed the cost of tardiness, bolted out of the room, desperate to make it to their next class on time. We hurried out too. Before leaving, I called back to Tammy's group. "If you're the last one out, make sure to lock the door." It was the only way she'd stay safe. The next 3 morning classes passed uneventfully. No one dared show up late. By lunchtime, we were starving. We grabbed a random table in the cafeteria. As usual, I held the spot while Jessica, Sarah, and Chloe went to grab me a plate of green peppers and ham. The girls from the next dorm over happened to sit at a table diagonally ahead. The one in the black mask was there too. I avoided looking directly at her, but I couldn't help stealing glances from the corner of my eye. She and a few other black-masked students walked to a counter, ordered food smoothly, swiped their cards to pay, nothing different from any other student. Behind her, more students in black masks lined up at the same counter.